Yuri and Sandra, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Anne, for the invitation. And I'd like to shift gears a little bit and invite everybody to just stretch a little and remember that you have a body, because the tendency, I guess, from our perspective is that in front of screens, sometimes we tend to forget. If you want to stand up a little, you can, and then just move your body a little and then sit back down.
So this is something we used to do where we had never done like long courses online before the pandemic. And so we changed everything. We brought to online everything we used to do in person. And we intend to share a little bit of our experience doing that here with you all. We don't have all these wonderful methodologies that they presented before. We just have our own way of doing things and how we are adapting and learning as we go and trying new things and experiencing. And so this is one thing, like just remember we have bodies, for example. It's one thing that we are always inviting people to do, mainly when we are long time sitting in front of the computer, like 3 hours or 4 or more.
Yeah, and as was presented, we work a lot with nonviolent communication, and we used to do a lot of face-to-face workshops. There are several people here in the group that have done workshops with us when it still was face-to-face, and also long retreats. So there was a challenge for us how to transfer that experience to an online environment on that level. We had already had experience with doing online work with nonviolent communication, but in that intensity, there were several questions and challenges that came up. So before we dive into anything, I actually would like to invite for another very short practice to just, if you'd like to take a few breaths, and if you feel comfortable, please just close your eyes while you're doing that and shift your attention inside. Just look inside, and while you're breathing, and notice what is your state right now like? What are you noticing? And as soon as you're ready, as soon as you've done several breaths and you're ready to come back, I'd like to invite you to just type into the chat maybe one main word of what you've noticed of how you are right now.
How are you feeling? How?
And just type into the chat. It could be more than one word if you'd like, but you can reduce whatever you notice of how are you right now, how are you feeling, what are you noticing in yourself. So there's a lot that's coming up already. Relaxed.
Inspired, relaxed, bubbly, happy to see you, Sandra and Yuri, hungry and curious, calm, warm, happy, caged, anxiety, excited, tired, tired of sitting, visualized, enthusiastic, feeling cognitive overload, thankful.
Thank you for engaging back. And this is already one of the things that we'd like to start with. So we're discussing what we wanted to share with you, and we thought of three main points maybe, or areas that we thought are significant or important in that experience, in thinking that transferring the face-to-face experience to online experience. And the first one we thought was connected to exactly the inner experience, the inner state of myself as a facilitator, as somebody who is holding space online. And I'm saying this because this is something that is already tremendously important in face-to-face work. And there are dimensions and maybe subtle aspects of this that are not always that obvious of their impact in how they're impacting the space that we're holding and the processes that we're trying to support while we're facilitating. So when I'm thinking of my own self-awareness as a facilitator or a leader, maybe of a team or a facilitator of a course, there are different things that could be hijacking my quality of presence, and that will definitely impact the way that I'm able to hold whatever is coming up, or the process, or keeping an eye on the objective, on the goal, or the phases, or whatever it is that I'm doing with the group. So just there are different things that I might want to just become more aware of about myself, of what triggers me and what puts me in a reactive mode, and notice if there's something that maybe someone who's speaking too long, or if the meeting is losing focus, or if the time for the meeting is almost up, and things like that that might hijack my awareness, and I get into a reactive state. And so the own self-work of myself as a facilitator, of how to come back, how to anchor myself, and how to also use an element of transparency about what's going on for me, and inviting people to understand what is it that is so important that I'm trying to hold, can be tremendously effective in just engaging everyone, inviting everyone to, I'd say, become more into resonance, achieving some level of resonance in the group, whether I'm trying to bring focus or something in that sense. Do you want to maybe say more about this, or not yet? Okay. I'm just concerned. So one of the things also that we were thinking about, so there are three main points. One is the inner aspect of the facilitator. The other one is the relational aspect of how am I dealing with people on the call, on the process or meeting or workshop or whatever it is. And another aspect is how am I weaving connection between people that are participating? How am I holding a space that helps people really exchange, connect to each other, connect to themselves? How am I generating that in the field? So,
and there's another aspect that usually we co-facilitate everything we do. We are married, and also we work together for over 10 years, and we are married for 21 years. So this is also something that it's really important in our work, and as well as when we work with another or with someone else, me with someone else, or Yuri with someone else, to have these like agreements, or how do we engage with the group, and how do we facilitate together. And so this is something we've been learning a lot with the years, in our own experience, that we can support each other, or we can disturb each other, and the opposite of supporting. I don't know how to say that in English.
Yeah. And disturb the process as well, yeah, when we do that. So, and
support each other and the group, or if we are not very well connected, or if there's something that is not we have to deal with that in order to bring the whole group a better experience.
Yeah, and in that sense also, it's worth mentioning that the fact that there's a dynamic also in terms of gender, and how gender identities and power relations impact our own interaction, and this is our own personal laboratory also. There's a little bit of that we also make transparent to the group, and try to hold how that is resonating also, because a lot of the topics that we deal with have to do with these challenges, and how they manifest also in groups, how men tend to talk more, take more space than women, or a more diverse array of gender identities that are not just binary. Anyway, just to mention a couple of things about then the relational dynamic. One of the things that is very core to nonviolent communication practice, and we noticed how it comes a little bit natural to us and not so natural in other environments. Some do, but for other reasons maybe, is the reflective listening, is how we're able to bring in our own example in modeling the way that we receive what people are sharing. And sometimes it has to do with a very superficial or technical information, and then checking understanding, for example, is something that can be really helpful, not only for that person to feel received, but also how that resonates within the group and creates an atmosphere and a feeling of, oh, this is an environment where people are received. And there's another element also, that when I check back, when I rephrase, for example, and check my understanding, I'm not only doing it for myself, I'm doing it for the whole group. So there are different levels of how reflective listening can have this first couple of benefits, but also the fact that we're modeling it is also a way that when we're starting to invite people to do that, they've already seen that happen several times. They've sensed the texture and what it feels like, what it looks like. So when they're invited to do that later, when we're trying to help people weave connection between themselves, amongst themselves, that's also not so foreign and starts to become part of the culture of what we're doing together for the time that we're spending together. Is there maybe something more?
I really enjoyed seeing the other previous two presentations and all of the design and visual aspects that we used to do that in person, and online it's been a challenge. So I'm really excited to try some of those things and to learn more about that, because this is something we're not doing, we're really not doing actually with images, but we do invite people to share Google Docs, for example. So everyone goes to a shared document to co-create it, to do something together or write things on the chat. So ways to engage people in collective doing something collectively. So I'm already speaking about the
weaving connections.
Connections. So we do a lot of small groups, pairs. In Zoom, you can do separate rooms, right? And having time and listening for people in the whole group as well. And we try to don't speak a lot, as we're doing here for 15 minutes. Usually we try to speak like 5 minutes or less, and then invite people, check how is it landing for you? Is something coming up? How there's some insight or something happening? And also interchanging, like I speak for 3 minutes and Yuri for 3 minutes and then me for 3 minutes, like not one person with a monologue, because in our experience also, it has been more difficult to pay attention online than it is in person, right? So we really try to mix a lot of things, like pairing up, engaging people to talk, and putting in pairs, in small groups, and
just adding maybe that a lot of that architecture comes from the art of hosting conversations that matter, and the idea of how do we decentralize the conversation in ways, and also the experiencing in ways that it doesn't continuously revolve just around us as the center. So the idea of going to small groups and pairs to exercise, and then to other small groups to harvest and kind of process what was that experience like, and then come back to the main group and then register again, harvest again what were the main learnings or insights, helps create those one-on-one connections that are so much more difficult to happen in a larger group. And it kind of dissolves a little bit the experience of being in front of a screen and so many pictures, and I'm kind of powerless, not wanting to take space in that environment. There are so many things that are happening in this structure that I'm not even sure that I know how many of those are happening. So, but I'm always trying to be aware. There's a lot that's happening here that is preventing people of feeling the group. And so somehow over a few hours, right at the beginning, we start already feeling a transformation in a sense of sensing a group-like energy. There's something that shifts, and people, it's not us that say that. Usually people in their feedback verbalize that there was something different in what we were doing. I felt it different. It wasn't like a usual Zoom course or something. And that's so satisfying, actually, to feel that some of the face-to-face experience is pouring over to the digital format.
And sometimes it's even deeper. Connection between people can go deeper because people are in their own homes, and you see like a cat coming on top of the lap of the person, for example, or kids, and people who work together, for example, and they don't have this close connection. Now they are starting to have, and it's it's something else that sometimes you can have deeper connections because it is online. And
acknowledging it and welcoming it as well, in the sense that people don't feel awkward or somehow that they've done something wrong because their cat appeared in the front of the screen or their kids came running in and grabbed them. And so we're just, attempting to really bring a sense of, oh, they're all welcome.
Welcoming everything that comes up. It doesn't matter what. So this is something really important.
There's another aspect of co-facilitation also that I want to mention for those who deal with that or haven't considered maybe that format, that it could be, there are challenges, but there are also great advantages. For example, if one of us is holding the space of talking to a particular subject or responding to a person or an issue that just rose up, the other one is really scanning the group and trying to check in for, just checking for signals and what is happening with people. And it's really helpful to have someone noticing if there are signals or something, emotion came up, for example, and you might want to check in with the person. Is everything okay? Do you need anything? Do you need would you like to talk about something or have some support?
And also we always have a tech support. Besides the two of us, someone who's caring for the organizing small groups and checking other things that we might not see, like just the technical aspects. Another thing is that was spoken previously before.
No, just to say that it frees a lot of the focus for facilitation if we're not having to deal with the technical issues. So we had to learn that the hard way. But,
we also start before a group starts, or before we start something with a group, we send a video of us, a welcoming video, a video with us presenting ourselves, and we create a WhatsApp group or a group in some other platform. Slack, for example, we use with Ready School. With Ready School, we use Slack and things that where people can connect other than in the meeting with us. And so it's another platform, another channel where people can talk about other things, ask questions and connect. What else? I wrote down a few things.
And
here.
We usually also invite people to do offline, not offline, they're still online, but they're outside of the course environments, to do practices that revolve around and have opportunities to practice what we're looking at in the course. So small groups, and depending on which course we're offering, we work with small groups, with pairs, empathy buddies, or things like that happen outside of the course environment. So there's also that element that increases the the level of cohesiveness and depth of experience for people, and it translates into the quality of presence. That definitely impacts in how people are present in front of the screen.
And there are groups that are for almost a year. They continue meeting up after the course with us. They continue meeting and doing amongst themselves. So it's really
one thing that I'm thinking of that is also important maybe to mention, that in transferring to online format, we noticed how people, mainly when we're working with organizations, when we're offering courses to government or different government branches or large corporations, what happens is that in most of these environments, people culturally haven't really adapted the organizational culture to the difference between what it is to attend physically a course and what it is to attend a course online. And what happens usually is that, as a pattern, and we've seen it in Brazil and other countries, is that people they don't notify their department or their team that they're out for a training. They because it's on their computer and all their life is on the computer and all the projects and meetings and everything else is happening on the same computer, they think they can do everything at the same time, and that really impacts the quality of presence and attention. And there's just hasn't been kind of a preparation of translating that shift. And so what we've learned over time is that we try to prepare people by sending out preparatory emails where we make it very clear that this is the same as this face-to-face course. You won't be able to engage in other things while you're with us. We really recommend you set that time aside so people can prepare and really emotionally actually prepare, but also how they're imagining what's going to happen. So it's not a shock when it does happen. And even with that preparation, a lot of people just glaze over the email and don't really read it. And then they have that shock that they're unable to do the workshop, which is very interactive, and do something else at the same time. It's just not possible. So they learn the hard way, but we're doing our best to prepare people for their presence. I think we probably might want to open to some questions now, because
there's another thing.
We just have 4 minutes, just so you know.
We also bring like short videos and some slides, some other things that to change what's the name? So don't do always the same thing as we are doing here. Actually, I'm very uncomfortable doing that. Just lecturing, just speaking nonstop. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna stop here.
Yeah.
Is that did you want to?
I think so.
Anything else?
If there's any questions or comments or how it's landing for you, or
we'd love to hear feedback in all kinds of forms. Questions or just comments.
So while we're just waiting for the questions to come in the chat, I can definitely say that the Ready School really enjoyed the 20-hour nonviolent communication course that we did with Yuri and Sandra earlier this year. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get, I think, 5 stars from pretty much every person who participated. And this is not paid advertising. This is just from heart to heart. You did an absolutely amazing job, and we can't wait to continue the good work with you.
Thank you, Anne. It was just really lovely to work with Ready School's team. It was just such a connecting experience for us as well. So
an amazing
we
group.
really celebrate that. Yeah.
Lovely to hear. All right. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in there. Here we go. So Reinaldo, also from Brazil. So maybe you want to unmute yourself and ask the questions. Lovely to have many people from Brazil here today.
How is reading the room online different from doing it face to face? Yeah, much more challenging, because it's more difficult to see the facial expressions, and also the but there are things, for example, if I notice someone is saying something And I'm just remember one situation, for example, the person wrote something down on the chat and talking about something personal, deeper. And I invited this person to speak if they wanted to speak. They said, no, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to say it out loud. Okay, so then, but she continued chatting, writing it down.
This was while I was facilitating
while Yuri
something.
was speaking, doing other things. And then this person closed their camera. And so I was co-facilitating. So I started talking to this person aside. And I was with this person for a while until, so she could come back to the group. She was dealing with something personal, very intense. So I was there with her, with empathy with her for a little bit, and in a separate group. This is like an extreme situation, like, let's say, not extreme, but just something that I picked up, something's going on here. And then the person came back to and she was thinking about leaving the meeting, leaving the course. And in the end, she stayed and she really enjoyed it. But it's much more challenging to do that in person, online. In person, maybe that person would have left the room and would have gone to the bathroom, for example. So in this case, as we are two, one of us can go check on the person to see what's going on, because we're dealing with, what we deal with is with very tender or sensitive things, many ways, some inner processes, and sometimes it's very challenging, and people get shy or afraid to speak it in front of everyone. What else?
So we have 3 more questions, good questions here. So I'm just going to read them out loud to you. We're also running a little bit short on time, but Ole is asking, what is an example of nonviolent communication in a remote meeting, and what does not work in nonviolent communication online? From
violent communication or a non-violent communication? I don't know.
So, or maybe Ole, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Well, I think it's a little, so non-violent communication, that's what you're about. What is, like, violent communication? How that unfolds? You want to encourage the opposite, but if I was to get some advice from you, and what should I not try to do when it comes to that kind of communication in meetings? Because there's something that can't be resolved, and then others like what works, what doesn't work when you're in that explosive area.
The answer to this question is much longer than we have the time. I just want to say that we don't consider nonviolent as the opposite of violent. That's a first thing, and it's a deep philosophical conversation around it. But I could say that what you're calling violent maybe would be an interaction that causes disconnection rather than contributes to connection. And I would refer that back to when I'm in reactive mode. If I'm in reactive mode, there is a high chance of creating disconnection. If I'm able to just find ways to have more self-knowledge, awareness, just know myself. Each one of us have our own triggers, our own history, our own trauma, whatever it is that's appearing, that's showing up when I'm facilitating. If I know what to do when that shows up, and not be in reaction, but be in presence, and be able to receive what's coming up and respond from a present place, that has higher chances to care for connection. But it's so much more than that. Well, so I don't know if you want to say something.
So in nonviolent communication, at least in the way I see it, we don't consider anything a violent communication. I can receive with empathy anything if I'm centered, or if I'm willing to, or if I'm able to. So, but there are things that maybe you're talking about how the ways I want to communicate in a way that will more probably not be received as violent for other people. Maybe that's the, so yeah. Okay.
I'd love to talk to you more another time about this if you're want to.
All right.
But there are things
We
like okay.
So I have to be the strict timekeeper now, just to make sure that our next speaker is also having a bit of time. There are some really good questions in the chat, so maybe if you on the side can also answer some of them in the actual chat, then we don't miss some of your great insights. But let's give Yuri and Sandra a round of digital applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now we are moving across continents and moving on to, I believe, Denmark. Are you with us now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Okay, first of all, thank you very much for this beautiful invitation. First to you, Anne, and to Andy and Ole and Sandra and Yuri. I'm very grateful that, I mean, we are in line or in circle, and that I'm going to build upon what you have just been telling. I've actually prepared a slideshow, so I will share that with you. Okay. Okay. I've been asked to speak about presence in the digital room and how you can transfer your presence from the normal room into the digital room. And I'm also part of the CHAOS pilot community. I'm not a CHAOS pilot myself, but I have taught at the CHAOS pilot for many, many, many years. And now I have co-founded a company called Emerging Earth together with some CHAOS pilots, where we're sitting in circle all the times, taking decision all the times in circles. So with everything that takes. Cool. My intention is to give a brief introduction to the mindset of the present facilitator. So how are you present in a room like this? What do you do? How do you do it? Yuri and Sandra, you talked about how to imagine, and you talked about the quality of, the present quality of the facilitator, the state of being of the facilitator. And that is actually what I would like to build upon, because that is what presence is about, the state of being. Yes. But before we start, a good way to look into, I mean, for me, it's like I see a lot of small stamps sitting in there, many different queens and kings sitting on a stamp. And I think the first thing that is important to remember is that I'm you and you are me. There was a question in the chat saying, how can you be empathic with somebody who don't even put on their screen? Try to remember a time when you didn't feel for putting on your screen. I mean, we all have these moments where you think, no, I will check my Facebook, I will go for a cup of coffee, I will do something else. So first of all, to remember that what is in the room is also me, and the room is me at the same time. So there's a play going on here. Yes. To be clear, I would like to give a definition of what does facilitate mean. It comes from Latin, and it means to make easy, to flow, or to smooth. And that can actually be a little different sometimes when you are in a digital room, because the system is not that smooth all the time. It's a very linear system that you are working in. Presence, that means being with. So when we are present, we are together, we are right here. So presence comes from, not from doing, but from being, and from your own state of being when you present or when you facilitate, also in the digital room. And as I said, there can be a challenge because you're actually doing a dance here. You're dancing between the digital system and a human system. So at one hand, you have a very linear system, and at the other hand, you have a very circular and reflective system. And you have to make that smooth, you have to make that easy, to run easy. And And how do you do that? How do you approach that? And what I would like to do now, and it sounds a little fluffy, and it is, but I would like to make it concrete. I mean, how do you see, or how do you approach the digital room in order to be present in here? So how can you shift your mind, or how can you consciously use your mind and shift it so that the presence is right here, right now? At the Chaos Pilot, there's a saying when you do processes, is around being over-prepared, under-structured, so that you show up with a process design and with an agenda that is not that structured, not too rigid in the structure, but you have your flexibility from, I mean, how prepared and over-prepared you are mentally. So you might have a good design, but when you stand on the floor or facilitate, it is about being capable of receiving whatever comes and change and dance with it. From my perspective, if you want to be present in the digital room, you both have to be over-prepared, have a lot of mental energy, but you also have to be a little over-structured. And that itself is somehow a contradiction. But that is the field that you work in if you want to be present. But if you do that, if you have a very strict and clear container, and you have a plan A and plan B and plan C, and at the same time you're ready to meet whatever comes, life can unfold inside the digital room. And I think that is what it is about, to make the room vivid and alive. Yes. When we look upon the word presence, you could also divide it in another way and then saying pre-sense. So, I mean, we have our senses, we have our 6 senses that we use, and they are alert and alive when you're present. I mean, you are here with everything you are. But I think around present as before I can come into that state of being, there's a pre-state, like a pre-prototype. There's another state before being able to sense. And what I do is that here I have taken a picture of a photo of some snow. I try to imagine what has the snow like, what has it been like before it was snow? How did it go from water into snow? Which cycles has it been through? And it is the same with all you people sitting in here. I've tried to imagine when I saw you when you entered the room, what did she do before? What did he do before? Where do they come from? Which kind of coffee do they drink? Do they prefer tea? So I try, in order to become present, to imagine what has happened before this moment, in order to zoom or dive myself mentally into it. I hope this makes sense. And Einstein, he had said, logic will get you from A to B. You could also say in a good process design will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. So I think when we're talking about presence in a digital room, it is very much about imagining, because that is where the magic is lying. So if you want to create magic in a digital room, it is not only about a good process design, it's also around your capacity to imagine what could happen and how it could happen. That is what can make you reach the stars together with the participants. In all wisdom traditions, no matter if you are a Sufi or you are a Buddhist, or also in the Christian wisdom traditions, the first step to become present is to appreciate, to learn to appreciate this very moment. So in our situation right now, it means that we are gathered here, and she somehow called us forward to come in together to this room, and just appreciate that this occasion will only happen this only time in our whole life. We will only be here together this only time in our whole life. So just the fact that we open ourselves to appreciate that, to be thankful for that. That is the first step, appreciation, in order to become present. We could imagine we are facilitating some kind of online training. We get a little annoyed around somebody's late, or we get nervous around, you know, our slide that doesn't work, whatever it could be, and suddenly we are out of the now. So instead of getting annoyed, just appreciate that we are here and stick to that. And then from another wisdom tradition, and I think that Yuri and Sandra also came into that, it is around having no attachment when we are here. And how the fuck do you do that? You know, not being attached when your chat doesn't work or something happens. What I do, I say, it just happened. Sometimes actually, I don't care. I have a tech host and I hope he or she takes good care of what has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, we take it from there. So it's very much around also not being too rigid yourself. I mean, it happened for a reason. Go with it, smile at it, and you can always break out people 2 and 2 and say, go into a conversation 2 and 2, talk about what you just heard about, and nothing happens. So it's very important that you're not too attached to your process design or to the digital framework that you are working with. Trust that it will help you, and if not, change it. I have worked a lot myself. It began at the Chaos Pilot, and then I have had a long journey in working with how can you shift your energy as a facilitator. Because I think that what makes a facilitator especially good or sublime is that you have the capacity to shift the energy. So if there's creativity needed in the room, you have to shift into a creative energy. If there's strategic thinking missing in the room, you must shift into another energy. And so I've been trained for that for 5 years in a place called, in an education called Evocative Leadership Mastery in Hammer Institute in New Mexico. And I have brought it back to Denmark together with Emerging. So we are working with especially women in circles around how can you shift energy in different areas of your life. So it might sound fluffy, but it is something that you can be taught. How to work with your presence. Yes. What I also see is my approach into a digital room is that there is a leader in every chair. I think some of you out of hosting people, you have heard that before. But the whole idea around that behind every small screen, there's somebody sitting who would like to lead something and who can make a change out there. So not being, what can you say? It's the wrong word, but not being indifferent around that there are, in this call, there's 80 people, you know, just 80 people. Who are they? I don't know, but I can say in each chair, there's a leader sitting and I can influence them if I bring something and if I'm present in here. So just the fact that you can see all the ripples in the water while you are in here can make you lean a little in, knowing I can actually create an impact. It's just not another Zoom meeting. Yeah. So I'm reminding myself around in order to be present that we are one, but we are not the same. Right now, we are connected. And if we all lean in with our presence, we can actually create something together. Because I think that right now in the world, there's a deep yearning and call and longing for belonging to something, to be part of different kind of communities. From my perspective, we are reorganizing the world right now, the whole world. And one way to do it is to do as we're just doing today, that we meet in digital platforms where we can participate from all over the world. And if you look at the word belonging, there's also being energy in there. So if you want to unfold people's belongings, it is important that you can be together with them. That's first step. Then we can act together with them afterwards. Yes, because what I hear right now in the world is that something wants to be born. There's a call for reorganizing, new kind of leadership. And there are so many people that for many, many years have been, what do you say, I can't find the word, for many years, you know, who haven't felt that they were part of the society. But from my perspectives, they are seeds for a new way of organizing our common life here on Earth. And I think that the digital platforms can help us if we use them in a good way. So we actually have the structure. It is laid out for us. We can connect now. We can speak to each other like we're doing right now. So what I think is very important is that we all put on our shoulders that leadership is not a position. It is not around whether you are a CEO or whether you have the right title. I mean, leadership is around walking in life, and a way that you can organize and lead are in these digital platforms if you actually lean in. So actually, all of you and all of us, we hold the light, we can connect the dots all over the world, and we can choose to be a leader of transformation. That was it.
Thank you so much, Gry. That was absolutely beautiful. I could hear when you were talking about appreciation and gratefulness, it really resonated and gave me a deep sense of calm and connection. So it's wonderful to have you here. We are now open for questions. Also, Andy is saying, beautiful, Gry. Thank you so much in the chat. So a lot of gratefulness here in the digital space right now. If you have questions or comments for Gry, please put it in the chat, or also feel free to unmute yourself. More thank you coming in there.
Hey Gry, I have a question. Hey.
Hi!
Saurimas from Team 7.
Yes, I know. Yes, hello.
And now also teaching a change course in Sweden. But I have a question for you, like very good memories from your classes in Chaos Pilots. And I've noticed that you're very good at bringing the presence, but also keeping the structure and the frames. How do you combine those two things? Because structure and frames and things, it seems that one is from the mechanistic business world and the other one is nearly from spiritual. So any secret how to combine these two?
Oh, you got it. Yeah, I want to be very frank with all of you and say, even though that I've facilitated now for 20 years, every time I also did it for this meeting, I do an I do art. I do it every time. So I use, that structure. So I know, so that I have a feeling of that I'm secure. And it might change when I open the room or when I go in on the floor and facilitate. And then I put, and that goes with shifting the energy, and then I just align myself into that we are all connected. That is where I begin. When I open the floor, or when I open this digital room. Let me see if I can explain this. It's a little difficult. So it is around when you are in a room and that when you trust, when you begin that we are connected. Then when I meet resistance or when people are like, she's a little strange, she's, I just embrace it. And as I just said around empathy, I just remind myself when I am against something, and I often am, I'm not walking around in peace all the time. You could imagine, but I'm not. So it is very much around trusting the connection. That and at the same time, I'm never sloppy with my I do art. I do it strictly every time because that also make myself mentally prepared somehow. I don't know, Arimus, if that was answer enough.
Yes, thank you.
Oliver here. I have a question. When you said in the beginning that it's important, can you hear me well? Okay.
Yes.
That it's important normally to be over
prepared, under-structured.
Under-structured, but you said online it's over-prepared and over-structured. First of all, why do you think so? And second, what do you mean by it exactly?
I would like to explain that. Maybe, Anne, can you write it in the chat? Over-prepared, understructured actually come from the CARES pilots. So when you are taught around how you facilitate and how you do a process design, you know, process design is somehow when you plan yourself, and facilitation is when you stand there in the moment, you know, facilitating, make things run. Then it is important that when you are often we are over-planned. We have planned everything. They have to sit like this. We have to use yellow post-it. You know, you plan and you plan and you plan and you plan. And you're so detailedly planned. So when you then meet the room and come in, you know, somebody don't like yellow post-its and everything breaks down. You don't know what to do. So it's better to say, I have a plan, I'm structured, but I spent the majority of my energy and time in preparing myself mentally so that I can meet whatever comes in a nice way, so that the flow keep on flowing in the room, instead of me getting like, you know, you can get nervous and you don't know what to do when people don't like what you have prepared. That is the whole idea. Less planning, more mentally preparation. When you stand on the floor in real life facilitating. And then when you go into digital rooms, and now we imagine that we were going to do a workshop a whole day, or I mean, what I've just done now is a presentation, but a whole collaborative workshop in a digital space, then I say you have to be over-structured and over-prepared, because you have to be aware of everything that, I mean, if we were going to work with a Jamboard, for example, or if we were going to work with Mural as we're doing here, or with a Miro board or something, you have to have all that prepared on beforehand. From my perspective, you also need to have a tech host, and the tech host has to know the names and how to get people in and all that. And that is also part of being very, 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 very well planned, you know. So you have a very well structured. So you can't say one-to-one. From my perspective, it takes double or triple time to prepare a good workshop digitally, if it is going to be vivid, efficient, alive. So that was the reason why I wrote it. You can't freestyle that much in here. You can try, you know, but you really have to be well structured, over structured. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
All right, we have time for one more question. Feel
Hello.
free to just, wonderful, Hamza.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I would like to know how to pronounce your name first.
Okay, we will stay to 10, Hamza. Gry.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. You have a wonderful perspective, and I think if people adapt that, things can move forward much better. But when it comes to mindset, if I can picture that as an equipment, I would say that's one of the rarest and most underestimated equipment a human have. The question is, how does someone figure the right mindset and adapt to it? And is there a process to practice in which it's possible to help someone with that?
I think it's a live question, Hamza, what you're asking now. But I think, and Ole and Andy and Anne, maybe you can also comment. I think I can speak from my own perspective. What I learned at the CARES pilot is I learned to learn somehow. So I learned that life is one long learning process, and that I should each day and I should challenge myself in a new way, you know. So the whole idea of it's not like goal setting. It's more like setting an intention around what is the next thing that I would like to learn, so that you somehow can broaden or expand yourself all the time. But knowing that everything is, that is how I see it, everything is learning. And I think we were oh, you cannot say this in English, but we were dannet, or we were like Bildung in German. I mean, we were formatted like that at the Chaos Pilot. Yeah, so it's very much around knowing that you can learn until you die, but already having that approach, you know, is something that, yeah, that I think I was taught there. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we're getting 1 minute before closing time. So let's all give Gry a warm digital applause. I'm going to see if I can get it into the gallery view. There we go. Really, really nice. Thank you everyone for joining. It would be lovely to get your feedback also in the chat. Let us know how this is landing, if you're having some ideas of speakers, or if you have ideas of how we can improve, feel free to add it in there. Really appreciate all the time and effort put in by all our truly wonderful speakers today. This is only possible because you are volunteering your time, which I really, really appreciate, and investing into more positive learning experience out there. So thank you very much from me for being here. I will make sure that I gather all the presentations. I will gather the video as well. I'll make sure that people are connected through the meetup. So with that, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, or a wonderful morning, or a wonderful, I don't know, night, wherever you might be joining from. It is absolutely beautiful to feel that we are one global family in this. So thank you very much for joining, and stay safe and stay healthy during Corona. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for organizing.
You're welcome.